Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us over £1.3 billion every year. That's almost £3.6 million every day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing, and every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
that's the subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units, they're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, a failed personal injury claimant kicks off.
I think he was a little upset with the way in which I cross-examined him, and as I left the court building, I found him following me down the street.
A jailbird fails with a performance that falls flat.
The incident was so obviously staged. If there was a scale of 1 to 10 as an actor, he'd be at the very bottom of this scale.
And a drunken driver gets smashed.
He appeared drunk and then began to get quite aggressive.
And then he proceeded to punch the policeman.
The UK is host to an estimated 5 million CCTV cameras, meaning the country has one of the highest rates of cameras per person in the world. And they're one of the most powerful weapons in the insurer's armoury when it comes to shooting down fraudulent claims. CCTV was to prove vital in the case of a motor insurance claim that was presented to insurers LV and investigated by Claire Lunn.
The claimant alleged that our insured had reversed back into his parked vehicle at such a force that it threw him forwards and backwards in his vehicle. Whilst our insured admitted that they had reversed back into the vehicle, they said that the vehicles had literally touched.
Colin Bushell of LV Solicitors, DWF, also worked on the case.
There were no injuries to the driver of the fault vehicle, as it were, but the claimant, who went on to make a claim for personal injury, had various alleged losses. So there was an injury claim, there was a claim for care and assistance, he claimed for damage to his vehicle, which he alleged had been written off, and there were other minor losses that he alleged, miscellaneous expenses, care and physio and things like that. So at the outset, the driver is suggesting that he's thrown around inside the car and as a result he suffers what people would know as a whiplash type injury. He suggested that he required help getting dressed or washing his hair, and that was provided by his partner. He also suggests that he couldn't play football or golf, which he said he did 2 or 3 times a week. He also says that the collision caused damage to his car, which wrote it off, which is something that we had to look at. He put forward a claim in the region of £5,000. So if he were to succeed on everything that he was asking for, that's what the insurance company would have expected to pay out.
You'd expect the driver's cost to be in the same region, wouldn't you?
The total cost of the claim to our insurance vehicle came to a minor £65.62.
Hang on. £5,000 on one side versus £65.62 on the other. That's a whacking great difference of £4,934.38. Something wasn't adding up, so the insurers went back to their driver to get her side of the story.
She immediately said that this isn't right. He didn't tell me at the scene he was injured. He's certainly describing a collision which I can't describe myself. It was very low speed as far as she was concerned, and she didn't agree at all that this individual could have been injured. So yes, she was surprised and quite angry at the thought that a claim could have been made.
Someone wasn't telling the truth. But one thing that never lies is the camera. CCTV allowed the insurers to find out what had really happened.
So we were quite lucky in this instance because the lady actually worked in the building adjacent to where the accident happened, which happened to have CCTV cameras outside. So she made initial inquiries and advised us that footage was available, which formed part of our initial assessment of the claim. We were able to look at those images and assess what she was saying and what the claimant was saying, which was exceptionally helpful.
You can see the woman getting into her car. Now brace yourselves as you're about to witness a really nasty crash. Nope, you haven't missed it. That was it.
So the footage quite clearly shows that this is a very gentle impact. It's a kiss between the two vehicles, and I can see quite clearly here, you just about make out that the claimant's vehicle rocks. Nothing more, really. You certainly don't see him get thrown around, as he suggests, happened to him, and almost immediately he's out of the vehicle, walking around looking between the cars to say or examine what potential damage may have been caused as a result of this very small collision. It's almost as if he's rubbing off dirt from the front of the bumper, to be honest with you. You certainly wouldn't say that he suffered a gross injury. He certainly doesn't look like he was thrown around and needed help to get out of the car, as he suggested. There's certainly nobody helping him get out of the car. So when I first saw this footage, I thought it was incredible what this gentleman was saying. I didn't believe at all that he could have suffered the injuries he'd alleged.
The footage was then forwarded to the other party with the expectation that the claim would be dropped, but they couldn't have been more wrong.
Well, the claimant, or the face of the claimant, his representatives, were very dismissive of the footage, which surprised us. We expected them to pretty much hold their hands up and say, OK, well, we think we've been rumbled, we'll walk away from this. The footage was treated in almost a blasé way, to be honest with you, and the claimant said, no, I'll basically see you at trial, let's go.
Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, the claimant had the nerve to take the case all the way. The insurers appointed an experienced barrister, Mark Roberts, to represent them at court.
Oh, my initial thoughts when I got the case were that it was an interesting case. Lots of difficulties in the evidence from the claimant's perspective, lots for me to have a go at, and the CCTV footage was a real bonus. Oh, in my opinion, it was undoubtedly grossly exaggerated. I'd probably go as far as to say that the claim for injury was entirely made up. It seemed to me wholly unreasonable to suggest that anybody could be injured in circumstances such as this.
When the case reached trial, the claimant took to the stand, and then perhaps wished he hadn't.
When I cross-examined, it was the best fun I'd had for some time. He was an aggressive witness, he was a difficult witness, he refused to answer questions, things had to be put to him in very different ways. He pretended to fail to understand questions that were very basic ones that were put to him, so it was a bit of fun.
Despite the CCTV evidence stacked against him, the claimant had the cheek to keep to his story.
He tells the court that he's thrown about by the impact, which he's not, but he's quite happily leaping out of the car and looking at the front of the car and showing no signs of injury whatsoever.
There could be only one outcome.
He lost, fairly and squarely, and the judge simply didn't accept anything that he'd said, and I think I would have been astounded had any judge accepted anything that he put forward as honest, frankly.
One person who didn't agree was the claimant himself. He later attempted to confront the man who had exposed his lies.
I think he was a little upset with the way in which I'd cross-examined him, and as I left the court building, I found him following me down the street. It had to be pointed out to him that following me down the street potentially wasn't a good idea from his perspective. Told him very politely to go away, if I can put it that way.
The claimant made the first sensible decision of the case and backed down.
Sadly, this is another example of a genuine minor accident being turned into a money-making opportunity.
Ultimately, if we make payments on these types of claims, it affects you as a consumer, as an insurer, or an insured, I should say, and a driver, because it goes to your premiums, and you end up paying the bill for this.
Still to come, a would-be fraudster tries to blame his crime on the postal service.
The customer was claiming that the ring was in the packet when he posted it and therefore has been stolen by a member of Royal Mail.
And what happens when one of these...
That will be mine one day.
...meets one of these... and one of these.
Oh! Oh!
Fraudulent insurance claims are a constant pain for the industry. With a total of 119,000 fake cases in a recent 12-month period, the problem is in danger of becoming endemic. One man used to dealing with the sharp end of personal injury claims is health and safety manager Colin Wells. His workplace provides more challenges than most. The Category B Dovegate prison in Staffordshire, one step down from maximum security. The prison authorities are regularly hit with personal injury claims, and the case involving an inmate by the name of Mr. DeLissa was no different.
The claim that was received from Mr. DeLissa's solicitor was that he was walking along the landing after emptying his bin. There was some water that had accumulated on the floor, and he actually slipped into the water, and as he was trying to get up, carried on slipping, resulting in injuries to his right tendon and to his back, which required further physiotherapy.
The injuries the prisoner suffered had potentially long-term implications and could have resulted in a hefty compensation payout. It's Colin's job to make sure the cons aren't attempting a con.
Part of my role as health and safety manager is to robustly look into each accident and incident. Part of that information that I will gather together is the CCTV footage. I'll get the accident report, any of the reports that go with it, any interviews that we'll have to do off staff, and then this will be the package that I'll put together and wait for any further claim that from a solicitor's going to come in.
As a matter of course, Colin also checked footage from the prison's understandably extensive network of CCTV cameras, and it soon became clear that there was something fishy about this watery accident.
The CCTV footage shows that Mr. DeLissa, walking along the landing after emptying his bin, he notices the water actually on the floor. He points to the water on the floor, and then he gesticulates to a fellow prisoner across the landing with his eyes, saying, "Look at me," and then points to the floor again. Mr. DeLissa then carries on to complete his fall actually onto the floor. The incident was so obviously staged. If there was a scale of 1 to 10 of how the accident took place as an actor, he'd be at the very bottom of this scale. It's that obvious.
So no Oscar on its way then. Apart from the criminally bad acting, the involvement of another prisoner also gave the game away.
It makes it a lot easier for when he's trying to put a claim in to have two people stating the same thing.
Despite his best efforts, the prisoner fell down on the basics, failing to realise that a prison is possibly the worst place to commit a crime, what with all the prison officers and cameras everywhere.
I think prisoners do get complacent. They must know that the cameras are there, but because they're totally surrounded by them all the time, they seem to forget that the cameras are watching them. There was only one reason for him to do this, and that was for fraud and to get financial gain out of HMP Dugate.
Needless to say, the claim was dead in the water, but Colin wasn't prepared to leave the matter there.
I then took out a separate prosecution with Staffordshire Police to go against Mr. DeLissa. Now, the reason I pursued this prosecution against Mr. DeLissa was not only because we received a letter of claim from him for his own financial reward, but because it was so obvious by the CCTV footage that he'd actually slipped on purpose.
Since the evidence was all caught on camera, it was a foregone conclusion.
The outcome of this particular claim was Mr. DeLissa received an additional 8 weeks, 56 days actually onto his sentence, which he completed.
Although his original sentence and the reason why he was in prison to start with was quashed, the prison authorities took a tough stance when it came to his attempted fraud.
It's a message that we do want to take out, that we don't take this lightly.
Quite the contrary. The claimant felt the heavy hand of the law again. The popularity of online shopping means it's a multi-billion-pound business. But there's nothing more annoying than ordering something over the internet and then having to send it back if it isn't right. That's where the Royal Mail comes in. They pride themselves on going the extra mile to ensure items are delivered and returned safely. So when something goes wrong, it's a big deal. When an online shopper got in touch to report that an item they'd returned by post to an internet jewellery retailer had never arrived, the Royal Mail's Diane Matthews looked into it.
The customer had returned an item that they purchased online, which was an engagement ring for £1,900. And when the package was opened back at the jeweller's, it was found that the ring and the box were not inside the packaging. The customer was claiming that the ring was in the packet when he posted it and therefore has been stolen by a member of Royal Mail.
The company takes such an accusation very seriously and immediately launched an investigation. The customer was asked to fill in a claim report and provide the team with proof of postage.
Royal Mail received the claim from the customer and it was forwarded to the investigation team. And when we looked at it and we looked at the paperwork that was associated with the claim, then the posting receipt was looked at and it was noticed that the weight of the item was on there.
The weight corresponded to the weight of the package containing the ring and the box when the customer took it to his local post office to send it back. The weight was to be a key piece of evidence. Meanwhile, the Royal Mail investigation team contacted the online jewellers for their side of the story.
The jeweller, when they receive all packages, weigh the item, as well as check the packet for any signs of tampering. It was established that the package hadn't been tampered and that the weight of the item was identical to the weight when the customer posted it at his local post office.
I might not know much about carrots, the diamond ones, not the veg, but I do know they weigh something. If the two weights were the same, that means the parcel was empty to start with. Therefore, the customer had kept hold of the ring. The case had fraud stamped all over it, and the investigation team paid the customer a visit.
The customer admitted when interviewed that he made the purchase of the engagement ring purely to facilitate a fraudulent claim to Royal Mail in order to recoup his £1,900. We contacted Merseyside Police and the customer was then arrested on suspicion of fraud.
The case proceeded to court and justice was delivered for the £1,900 he tried to claim.
He was given a criminal record and also an 18-month conditional discharge. He was also ordered to pay back the £1,900 investigation costs and also a victim surcharge.
But the story didn't end there. The customer had tried to return the ring to the company after his scam was exposed, but they refused to accept it.
The customer was handed the ring back as he had entered into a finance agreement to pay for the ring. In this instance, the customer was paid twice for the ring in essence, sort of a double whammy simply because he has to pay his finance agreement when he purchased the ring, and he also has to pay Royal Mail £1,900 in compensation and costs.
In this case, the would-be fraudster pushed the envelope too far.
It's satisfying to get a result like this because the Royal Mail employ a lot of honest individuals, and obviously the fact that their integrity has been questioned is something that we need to protect. I think the customer thought that he'd only have to put the claim in and we pay it, but Royal Mail do actively check compensation claims as a matter of routine. This claim certainly didn't pay off.
Insurers are taking the fight to the fraudsters using every tool at their disposal. A big growth area is in specialist consultants, like Tara Shelton of ICOG. She uses techniques that identify fraud more swiftly than normal. She's every scammer's worst nightmare, a former police officer with a degree in psychology.
If you actually mix the key ingredients of my background in the police with psychology, it's in essence given us the perfect, unique mixture of how to assess claims in a way that maybe not have been done before.
She can tell if someone's lying just from listening to their voice.
Actually listening to a claimant talk about their claim is probably the most powerful source you can ever use to detect either opportunistic or organised fraud, because people convey themselves in a multitude of ways without them actually realising it. You will get the individuals that are stupid. You will also get the individuals that don't even think that an insurer would assess a claim. And commonly we will find that their account of what happened is missing obvious detail. So another indicator that we currently see is evasive behaviour. So they will intentionally try and sidestep. They will intentionally try and change the topic. They will intentionally try and divert the call handler away from the discussion at that present time. Ultimately, a claim always has a story about something that's happened, an incident, And for me, that's where the key lies in actually assessing that account of what happened as to whether it's true or not.
Elsewhere, specialist training means call handlers are now able to read the signs of questionable behaviour. One such claim came to LV when they received a call from a customer reporting the theft of his vehicle and a subsequent crash. Once again, it was Claire Lunn who looked into the case.
During the initial call, our claimant appeared quite hesitant to give any detail, quite evasive, and displayed certain behaviours and mannerisms that gave lots of red flags that perhaps this needed to be looked into a bit further.
The claimant was asked to give a detailed account of what happened.
I walked home about 10, 11 o'clock-ish.
Yes.
And I saw somebody in my car. The drove off.
Yes.
Collided with my daughter's car, sent the pickup speed up the road and crashed into another car in the garden. I ran after them, and then a load of people come out the houses and jumped on me. I tried to explain what had happened, but
yeah,
they sat on me.
These were very unusual circumstances of a theft and quite bizarre. So again, we wanted to make sure and validate the circumstances had happened as reported to us.
The insurers called the claimant back to go over his version of events. Again, his behaviour was strange. He seemed confused about what had happened.
And why did they jump on you?
Because they thought I'd been driving.
I mean, but even if they thought you'd been driving, why did they jump on you?
Because I crashed into their house.
Because I crashed into their house? I thought he said it was a thief. I'm no expert, but it sounded like he'd slipped up there.
Because I crashed into their house. I thought, oh.
However, solid evidence was needed, and a combination of good old-fashioned investigation work and curtain-twitching locals was the answer. People who'd witnessed what had actually happened gave a completely different version of events.
So did you see the incident happen?
I heard the bangs and everything, and I got to the window and I saw him coming out the driver's side of the car.
Okay, so that you believe that the owner of that vehicle was the driver of the...
Oh yeah,
yeah.
100%.
As I got out there, the car was stationary, the door was just opened, and the gentleman got out of it. What I know he's the dad of number 2.
Far from being an innocent victim, it was clear that the claimant was the villain of the piece. Furthermore, he was attempting to get a payout for damage that he'd caused.
They saw our claimant get out of the vehicle. He appeared drunk and then began to get quite aggressive.
He was obviously intoxicated. A few aggressive gestures, said he was going to punch out to the paramedics, so she quite rightly stepped back.
Yeah.
Police turned up just as this guy tried to punch out to one of the neighbours. The policeman took over, tried to calm him, and then he proceeded to punch the policeman. And that's when they sort of put his arms behind his back and restrained him.
The claimant was actually taken to hospital because he'd suffered from head injuries from being involved in the incident.
Maybe the knock to the head explains why he thought he was in with a chance of a payout.
We now knew that the claimant hadn't been truthful and we declined his claim. It's quite remarkable that our claimant thought that he would get away with this. There were several witnesses of the incident, but I think he was hoping that the insurance company wouldn't do for thorough investigations.
He was dead wrong. The insurer's evidence was passed to the police, who had already launched their own investigation. His attempt to claim for damage to his car had hit the buffers.
Our claimant was eventually charged with driving whilst impaired and was given a 22-month driving ban and a suspended sentence. The claimant not only put himself at risk, but others at serious risk of harm, and then made up a story to try and cover his tracks.
Just like the drunk claimant himself, his story didn't stand up, and he was left high and dry with no payout and a criminal record. UK insurers have managed to put the brakes on this type of small-scale motor insurance scam. But over in America, fraudsters have driven the stakes to unprecedented heights. On the face of it, Andy House was living the American dream. He owned a luxury car dealership in Texas and drove this bad boy, a $1.75 million supercar, caught on film by a passing motorist, student Joe Garza.
Pretty sure it's a Lambo, dude.
Wrong. It's a Bugatti Veyron, and only 450 were ever made. It's one of the rarest and most expensive cars on the planet.
That will be mine one day.
Wrong again. It won't be anyone's. House's American dream turned into a nightmare when this happened. Whilst driving along La Marque Lagoon, he had a titanic accident, swerving off the road at high speed and into the water. Luckily, he made it out alive, none the worse for wear. The dramatic clip was filmed purely by chance and has been viewed and shared around the world millions of times. While Andy received nothing worse than a soaking, any hopes of repairing his Bugatti Veyron were sunk. The soggy supercar was totally beyond repair. Soon after the accident, specialist contractors were called in to recover the vehicle. The loss of such a high-profile car made international headlines, and the world's petrol heads demanded an explanation. House claimed that as he was driving, his mobile phone had gone off, and he'd been distracted by a passing pelican, which had made him swerve into the lagoon. He added that he'd left the engine running because he was being stung by mosquitoes. The flooded engine meant that the vehicle was totally beyond repair. But all was not lost. As a responsible car dealer, House had taken out extensive insurance, meaning he was in line for a seven-figure compensation payout. Having valued the car at $2.2 million, to you and me, that's £1.5 million. And everything would have gone swimmingly if it hadn't been for the social media clip. At the time, House was unaware that the accident had been filmed, but during their investigation, the insurers were quick to find and analyse the video. They tried to spot the pelican he claimed to have swerved to avoid, but it's more of a case of where's the birdie, not watch the birdie. The pelican is nowhere to be seen. The clip also shows he made no attempt to brake before splashing into the lake. Convinced that he had deliberately trashed his supercar to get an insurance payout, the insurers rejected the claim. They then reported him to the authorities, and he was eventually put on trial for wire mail fraud. In August 2014, he pleaded guilty and could face up to 20 years in the slammer. Using his Bugatti Veyron to try and pull a fast one ultimately left Andy House a washed-up fraudster.